Okay, hello. More gas, no brakes. So basically another poke night in English. If someone could confirm if I can be both seen and heard properly. That would be nice. As most of you probably know, we are going to play heads up today, and we are going to play heads up sit and goes. Impact Point asked whether we are going to play super turbos or the regular speed sit and goes. I will play whatever you want me to play, but yeah, basically I'm just going to register whatever is available until I get any other suggestions. I get check raised on this texture, which usually means very strong hands and good draws. I'm going to peel a flop, but on turn unimproved, I'm just going to fold. Yeah, Neo posted several questions, basically every single question there is to ask about pre-flop and post-flop, and we are going to take a look at them at some points. I'm wondering whether I should play one. I think I can play one and ask answer the questions at the same time. Here in this hand the villain made a pretty small continuation bet on the turn with third pair, which I can't believe it's hard to imagine it's the best line to take. So I think we are very often against a not too good of a opponent. Yeah, I don't think we have a additional delay this time. I was trying to not to add any delay. Here I was planning to call 2 barrels because he second barrel too light, and on this river I think too many turn draws just get there, so in some way they river a pair or get a straight or something. Too many strong hands. Yeah, so let's take a look to these questions. Neo asks about pre-flop. When should I 3-bet light and with what hands? Well, how I have basically built my 3-betting strategies that I have by default I have a polarized 3-betting range. So I'm going to take like 10% of the very best hands, and around the other 10% will be the something I'm not that happy to call it or have a good playability or something. I don't have a check raising range here, so with double gutter I'm just going to check call, and against his turn check I assume he's gonna have air or something. He's not gonna be willing to bet himself too often, so I'm just going to try to get some value by betting small. I think his range is going to be pretty weak most of the time. We get min raised. It's tough to say whether he's going to min raise, get it in with worse straights with 7. He might with this sizing. I'm just going to click back and hope to get a too loose of a call. So yeah, I'm going to. I often start with the more polarized 3-betting range, and I'm trying to follow this fold to 3-bet number and this 4-betting number, and trying to get a hint whether my opponent is the type who folds too much to 3-bets or calls too much. And from there, I'm just going to go towards very strongly bluff heavy or value heavy 3-betting range, unless against good regulars who often don't 3-bet too much, don't fold or don't call too much. They have a pretty good strategy against 3-bets. I can just keep going with the polarized 3-betting range. When to flat and when to 3-bet against button opener, and with what hands and ranges deep stacked, and well, that's gonna take a ton of time to answer that properly. But yeah, that's, I think my last answer somewhat yeah, there were some answers to that question as well. So you're basically just willing to find out what your opponent does against your 3-bets, and that's the way you want to sorry, I have to mute my phone. That's how you'll find out whether to 3-bet your very best hands, for example. And if you don't, then you are obviously going to flat with them, and vice versa, or vice versa. I don't know how it's. This guy seems like he had a too weak of a turn c-bet, but other than that, his stats look okay. We are now pretty shallow stacked, and there's this. I have opened a Hold'em resources heads up Nash equilibrium charts. So basically shoving and calling charts, which I pretty much use with under 10 big blind effective stack sizes. Hands this strong are definitely going to be in my raise calling range, pretty much. Well, almost always. There are some acceptance. I don't know. Exceptions. Yeah, I'm not going to see, but I think when he only calls my open raise, this is a flop that hits him very well. And yeah, it's kind of lame to end up folding 2 overs and a gut shot, but I don't think we can call properly profitably against his range. If he's a good regular, he's most likely going to have limp calls as he did, and this is actually a very good hand to limp call with, but since he had only limp folded every single time, I usually just keep shoving. Yeah, that didn't go too well, but let's see if he wants to rematch now. I'm just trying to get another match, and while looking for an opponent, we can just take a look at some of these questions. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if I should only answer these questions in between of matches, because I pretty much can't answer your questions about the hands when not in a chat box. So yeah, I'm just going to join an opponent. So this guy was waiting in a lobby. His nickname is Heads Up Grinder, a grinder. So I would suppose that he's going to be from the better. Like, I would assume that he's gonna be pretty good, but who knows? He folded the two first hands, so that's usually a sign of a bit tighter player. And I actually have some bells ringing about this nickname, but I don't know for sure, but I think I might have played against him. Yeah, Marcus asks whether the heads-up set and goes are softer on 888Poker than on PokerStars. The recreational players, there's no big of a difference between any sides, I think. But the regulars are probably a bit better on PokerStars. On paired board, such like this, I'm just going to check call Jack 10 with a plan to with other plans than hitting a straight on turn. Once we do, this is actually a card that hits our range fairly well. We are often going to call a c-bet on flop with ace high, so I can't bet too big in here, I don't think. I think he's got more likely with some middling strength hands. He's more likely to call a smaller bet than the bigger one, I think. Here pretty standard continuation bet, and this turn bet is actually pretty close. I think I'm just going to bet we are getting folds from ace highs and queen highs without the diamond. And on this reverse sizing, again, I can't go too big. Yeah, let's discuss that. Yeah, I'm definitely going to bet fold. He can easily have like all the strongest hands, like big number of full houses, all the ace X diamonds, ace of diamonds combos and so on. So there's some value in betting the river, obviously. Well, not obviously, but he could easily have like 7-6 with 7 of diamonds and end up calling us with to Marcus Wise questions about whether I would barrel to turn if I didn't pick up equity. Most likely not too often. It depends a bit on the turn card, but most often I wouldn't. My villain has c-betted every single time, which is not going to be very good strategy in the long term. And against a 100% c-betting range, I'm happy to check raise with 2 overs and a gut shot. Now let's see if I cooler him. Just waiting for a while and shoving. A chip leader asks what would be the good stats for, I think, open raising small blind. Or what is OR? ORBB, like you can't open raise the big blind, so maybe I misunderstood, but basically I'm going to play almost every single hand from small blind by min raising until I get a reason not to open, and the reason usually is too wide of a 3-bet range by big blind. This is again a hand I just want to double gut shot. Yeah, I think I want to take this hand into my check raising range. Although I very rarely check raise anything on flops nowadays, because let's think about Queen 10-6. It's a texture I only have 3 combinations of sets, and so therefore when I only have 3 combinations of sets, I can represent because I would 3-bet 10s and queens pre-flop. It means I'm very often gonna have draws, so maybe even check calling with double gut shot would be better. This is again a texture I would often check raise with a bluff, because you don't often have a very good hand to continue with. But I have a check raised twice in a pretty short period of time, so I'm just going to be a bit tighter with my check raises. Yeah, so I basically play every single hand from small blind until I get a reason not to, and from big blind it pretty much depends on my opponent. But against someone who opens every single hand, well, it still depends whether he c-bets a lot, but I'm going to play around 80% by 3-betting and flatting combined. Like this hand, this is actually pretty close because he hasn't opened every single hand so far. So since this is pretty close to calling and folding, I actually think I can 3-bet this hand. We haven't 3-bet once, and I kind of want to find out pretty quickly whether he folds too much or not. So yeah, I think that's pretty good hand to find out it with. Obviously it doesn't have great equity against a call, but I just don't care enough. So yeah, and c-betting percentage, it's tough to say. I recently played against a very good player, in my opinion, who only c-betted like 20% of the hands, and that's the lowest from a good regular I have ever seen. From a good c-betting percentage is usually between among the good regulars, it's somewhere between 40 and 70, I would say. 70 is actually pretty high c-betting percentage. Here we turn to pair, and this is too weak of a hand to check raise here, in my opinion. So I'm just going to check call and re-evaluate the river. Like, this is pretty bad river for us. But if he has some kind of hand with that he bet the turn for value, like ace king or ace queen, he's not gonna shove the river with. So on this river I'm just going to fold. Maybe with 40 big blinds the turn spot is pretty close, but I would still rather take this hand into my check calling range, because again on a texture where, let's see, yeah, on a texture such like this, we are not gonna have too many great hands against, like in my range. I'm going to 3-bet king queen, I'm going to 3-bet ace 10, ace jack. So the strongest hands in my range on this flop will be like jack 10 and so on. So this is usually a text I get 3 barreled light against, because I pretty rarely have a good enough hand to call down with. So that's why I was planning to check call 3 times, and unfortunately this river is actually the type I don't really think I can call on. So check calling 3 times is usually the way to go with this hand. Yeah, and yeah, my defending range does depend on sizing. Obviously, if my opponent open raises for 4 big blinds, for example, I'm not going to defend hands like 8-6 offsuit. But against a min raise, I think I can in most scenarios. So yeah, whether against bigger open sizes, I'm just going to have a bit tighter defending range. Yeah, I would have to disagree with Death Doll's default strategy about having a 80% c-betting range, but yeah. Again, I'm thinking about the sizing here, and on this text I think we can have a bit bigger sizing, because he's gonna have a lot of like top pair kind of hands which are never going to fold, and we are going to have a lot of one spade hands which we feel comfortable, or he might think we feel comfortable barreling. 25 big blind 3-bet shove usually means like deuces through 5s or 6s. So this is actually pretty close, even though it looks pretty weak hand. I think I'm just going to call here. He would have to 3-bet shove with ace jack for this to be bad call. Even 8s, eights are actually not too good of a hand to 3-bet shove this with 25 big blinds. And queen jack is definitely going to be the bottom of my calling range, but I felt adventurous. I keep trying to say words I actually can't pronounce too well, so hopefully I'm not going the easy way at least. Let's see whether he wants to rematch now, but he might just be waiting in lobbies. I think I'm just going to tease him a little bit and register or join him until he's out of money or until I'm out of money. It was 25 big blinds, and 25 is actually quite a lot. And let's assume, since we min raised, he could just, or he's better off just 3-betting to around 5.5 big blinds. Then we actually have room to 4-bet shove, and our 4-betting range is gonna contain hands that eights crush, like some ace deuce, ace 5 offsuit combos, or even suited combos. So basically, the strongest hands you want to take into 3-bet call range, and I think eights are definitely going to be good enough to 3-bet call. Here I floated with, or called the flop c-bet with pretty much all the backdoor draws possible, and against the turn check I'm just betting to get maybe a deuce or ace high to fold. From this, he only has played 71% of hands from the small blind, which is definitely from the tighter side. And he hasn't defended against a 3-bet not once, so I'm just going to keep 3-betting light. This is actually a flop. I'm just going to check fold because it hits him very well. Yeah, I definitely know what Marcus Y means. Colin asks, how lot you tend to 3-bet small with stuff like king, queen, queen jack? Yeah, I do take them into my 3-betting range. Well, king, queen is almost always in my 3-betting range, and queen jack, depending on my opponent's tendencies, is against the villain that 4-bet shoves a lot. It's not, I'm talking about shallow stacks. It's not a great hand to 3-bet with, because you want to play post flop with a hand that has very good post flop playability. This is one of the worst 8x hands I'm going to see, but maybe jack 8 plus I would see bet here. But this on a draw heavy board when my opponent hasn't check raised not once, I'm just going to see bet for value. And on this river I'm definitely going to bet for value against worse 8x hands and deuces and maybe the turn 6s. If he had like ace 6 or 7-6, he's sometimes gonna have 6, so he's gonna have quite a lot of calling hands. Yeah, 10-6 is definitely in his range. So, and again, I don't want to bet too big because most of his calling hands are gonna be 2x's, I think, because we block an 8 and block a8, an 8, yeah, an 8, and maybe ace highs. So I'm just going to bet small enough for hands like those to be tempted to call. No, I don't think so. He has too wide of a range for us to overbet, and he actually can have full houses or 9x hands. So I don't really see a point for overbetting, because we can just try to get a call from the weaker parts of his range. He's more likely to fold those against a overbet, I think. Well, definitely. Well, some villains level themselves, but yeah. This I actually just fold. So yeah. Neo asks how to adjust to players with high 3-betting frequencies. Well, let's say that my opponent 3-bets around 25 or more. Yeah, I'm just going to check. Yeah, against like very big 3-betting percentage, I wouldn't open all the hands. I would fold the very worst ones, and I would 4-bet light and find out whether he wants to fold to 4-bets or not. And I would actually have a wider call 3-bet range. But you kind of want to find out what the 3-betting range looks like. This guy, when he hasn't c-betted to turn, he has folded to river bet, which usually means that he's gonna have good hands in his turn c-betting range more often. This guy's 3-betting range has actually been pretty tight so far. So yeah, basically you just want to find out what your opponent's 3-betting range looks like and go from there. This is the first time that my opponent doesn't c-bet. I don't know whether I should bet here or not. I think I might. Although this is a flop texture that usually he should c-bet often, and then when he doesn't, he usually should have something to call the turn bet with. But this guy seems like not the brightest type of regular, so I'm just going to assume that he's not gonna be always balanced or doesn't fully know. He might know the rules, but he doesn't. He might not be trying to win the maximum. This is a good example of a spot I do not want to see, but we are not gonna get too much value by c-betting, because the worst hands that will call are mostly draws, and they have decent or very good equity against us, and we don't get any better hands to fold, obviously. So this is a very good spot to not c-bet. And against the turn bet, I'm gonna call once, at least once. This is a pretty big sizing, so it needs to be noticed. And this is actually a river card that I don't expect him to bluff very often on. Because if I'm going to call this turn bet, I'm very often going to have a calling hand here. He's not 3-betting too much or so he might have too many king x combos for me to consider calling or raising on the river. He 3x's, which is something I actually think he hasn't been doing. So he might be bad enough for... He might actually have 3xing and min raising ranges, which is obviously not going to be a very good idea. Against regulars, you pretty much always want to have only one sizing, when it comes to raising, open raising, or 3-betting or 4-betting. Obviously you can adjust to effective big blinds or effective stack sizes. I'm not going to have the same 3-betting size 100 big blinds deep compared to say 20 big blinds deep. So you can adjust to stack sizes. But if you are going to 3-bet against a regular 50 big blinds deep, you almost always want to have the same sizing with all your 3-betting hands. This is a spot that is actually going to be pretty close whether I want to c-bet or not, but with a club, queen of clubs, I think there are enough scenarios on turn I can just keep barreling. And the first time we got called, I just check folded, so he might give too much credit to my c-bets. Although I think I have played against this guy earlier, so he might actually have more hands or more data about us than we have out of him, because this is a pretty new database I use. But for some reason I think I have played against this guy somewhere, and maybe like 6 months ago or something. This is actually a spot I wouldn't c-bet too many middle pairs again. One might think that you want to protect your hand, but against one club hands, but actually there aren't too many of those compared to other ones, and you don't really want to get check raised too. This is actually a turn I'm just going to I'm just going to check. I think he would lead most of his one club hands, so I'm just happy to check it down. And yeah, I'm too often just going to bet myself against hands that fold, which we are we don't mind if he folds, but we are often just going to value turn ourselves. This is actually a scenario he saw us raise call his 3-bet shove with queen jacks, so he might think that we are just always going to call too wide. So this is a spot I actually think he's gonna have like ace jack or ace queen type of hands. Bet sizing pre-flop in general, like 3-bet, 4-bet, raise over limper. That pretty much depends on the effective stack sizes, but with 75 big blinds all the way to like 40 big blinds, I'm just going to check. Well, no, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just going to check. And I think I can get him to fold king x hands here with a big bet. Ace x is, I don't think I can get to fold, but we also get him to fold like 10 nines and whatever he might have. So I think betting big there is probably okay. So yeah, I'm going to often begin with 6 big blind 3 betting size and go all the way to 4.5 big blinds, which is going to be my sizing with under 25 big blinds when I just want to 3-bet and not 3-bet shove. So against min raise you can just go 4.5 big blinds in some scenarios. Daniel Coleman actually just goes 4 big blinds in some spots, and I don't think the difference is that big, but that just shows that you can actually go pretty slow with the 3-bet sizings. I'm just going to check raise here and get it in. Yeah, my pleasure. If you have any other questions, or if anyone has any other questions, this is the chat box is available or can be used. So yeah, I don't know if I have explained default strategy very well so far, or maybe I have just assumed that everything I do is clear for everyone, but if you have any like questions you think is too simple to be asked, or you shouldn't be like feel yourself dumb or anything, you should just be brave and ask, because this is actually a pretty good place to ask about even the beginner level questions. I'm just going to fold because he has been calling and 4-betting against my 3-bets a bit more lately. So maybe he's actually going to have a pretty good call, like defending strategy against my 3-bets, and just had air against the two first ones. So I'm just going to basically adjust to my opponent's frequencies the way I expect them to be with the data I get. So even though if at first I assumed that he's gonna fold to 3-bets too much, but then when it turns out that he might not, then I'm just not going to 3-bet as wide as I would have if he didn't adjust or something. We are 25 big blinds effective, so my c-betting size is on the trier boards will be around or a bit under half pots. And for example, on this texture, if I opted to c-bet, I would have used something like 75 chips. I'm just happy to check it down again. Yeah. This is a hand I want to flat with. Good chinks. So yeah, he seems to be a bit too tight from small blind and not very wide from big blind either. He has folded to c-bets quite a lot, and he has c-bet way too much with this sample size. So this is actually a villain I would actually be pretty happy to play against, but I think too much is enough against pretty much anyone in one poker night. We want to have, I think we want to have a variety of opponents, and maybe if we get a like more recreational player in the last match or few matches, we actually have 40 minutes to go, so we might be able to play plenty of them. But yeah, it would be good to show how to adjust against very recreational player. Neo asks, how do I classify whether the board is wet or dry? Yeah, basically the more draws there are and the better the higher the cards are, the wetter the board is. Snap call. So yeah, flush draws definitely affect the wetness, if you will, and basically like Jack 10-9 is one of the most wet boards you can have. This is actually a spot where we only have under 8 big blinds. I'm pretty much going to go with this shoving range or chart, and this chart tells me to shove this hand with 6.5 big blinds and less, and we only have like 4.3, so I'm going with this chart pretty much always when having less than 8 big blinds effective. Few exceptions. If my opponent was very tight, I would shove wider than the chart tells me to and call tighter than it tells me to. Yeah, again, King 7, you get to see that you are allowed to call with 12 big blinds and less, and we only have 8.5, so definitely going to call with this hand. And yeah, this is basically how the equilibrium chart works. It should it also should be noticed that it tells you to shove aces or even fours, well like aces or ace king with 20 plus big blinds. It just means that the for example, the if we look at ace king, the amount of big blinds it can be shoved profitable is more than 20. It can be like 140 or whatever, but I still can make more money by min raising it. This is actually a nasty spot. It feels like he's been three betting bit more with shallow stacks, so this is actually a hand I could very well take into my limping range, or even shoving is better than min raise folding, but I can't min raise call. So this is actually a hand I might have misplayed, but he hasn't been too loose with 3 bets, so that's why I just like automatically min raised. I'm not gonna repeat my mistake. This is actually a hand I can limp call. This is my first limp, and he can actually shove against the limp very widely, and this hand plays pretty well against his shoving range, I believe. Ace X's are definitely going to be in his range, no matter what we have done. But yeah, Kaleon spotted my mistake as well. Just going to call. We lost the ace jack against ace 9, but won the 4 next ones or something. So there really seems to be justice in this world. How do you see profitability of heads up sit and goes between normal, turbo, and super turbo? $/hour, like hourly win rate wise? That's actually a very good question. It really depends on your personal skill sets. If your skill set is like you are very good with math, you are very good with multi-tabling, and so on, you are like almost a computer or bot in that sense. I think these super turbos or hypers will most likely be better for you. And if you are better in understanding the scenarios, playing with wide ranges, then the turbos and regular speed sit and goes will most likely be better for you. Yeah, I don't think there's one easy answer for which you get the best hourly win rate from. I definitely get the best win rate from turbos and regular sit and goes, and I don't know which one is better for me, because I play them. When I play sit and goes, I mix them. But yeah, my return of investment is definitely going to be higher in regular speeds, but I don't get enough tables from the sites I play on from just regular speeds, so I mix in turbos and even some super turbos every once in a while. Yeah, and to Colin's other point, I actually do would have raise called against some opponents, because I know they are going to 3-bet shove very wide against me, but this the heads up grinder guy didn't seem to be the type. And if you are not going to raise call, I think you shouldn't raise in the first place at all. This is a spot my opponent will have some ace-x hands, some 4x and some deuce-x hands mostly. Obviously some river trips, but I'm just going to bet fairly small here. Let's see what Neo wanted to know about post flop. When to c-bet. Yeah, I think we answered some at least somehow on this c-betting question. Basically, if you there are two things to think about. If you are a beginning heads up player or no limit hold'em player universally, I think if you are beginner type of player, if you're new to hold'em, it's good idea in my opinion to, I'm just going to well, yeah, I'm just betting the turn. He seems like he's going to be recreational. Yeah, you should, in my opinion, always think. You should always know whether you c-bet for value or if you're bluffing. So basically, when thinking about betting for value, you just have to come up with a bunch of worse hands than yours is for your opponent to call you. And the other option is that you are bluffing. In this scenario we have 8 high, and I think jack highs and queen highs will fold against our c-bet, so this is a good bluff. Okay, when you move on and you are more experienced heads up player or no limit hold'em player, these like advices are pretty much the same in 6 max of hovering or sit and goes or MTTs or any other form of no limit, or actually pretty much in Omaha or other games as well. So yeah, there are scenarios where you actually have like hand like you have a hand you could check with and go to showdown and expect to win most of the time, but by 3-barreling or something you just get more folds. So basically you know that your opponent's range doesn't have enough calling hands, so you just end up 3-barreling with most of your hands. I think this guy just mean 3-bet against us. Pre-flop with 7-6 suited is actually pretty close. I'm just happy to find out what he does when he has limped. Most just limp call or limp fold pretty much always. It's very good to know that this guy is actually capable of limp raising as well. So I'm not gonna raise hand like 7-6 anymore. I'm also with a gut shot and a 6 high. I'm happy to just to try if my opponent is likely to fold in these limped pots very easily. So this is actually very good example of a recreational player who clearly doesn't have a very good idea what he's doing. He has a wide limping range. He min raised, so he's more likely to have a better hand when raising, and he plays more hands out of position than he does in position. His 3-betting size was min 3-bet or 3 big blinds against our 2 big blind range. So basically we get the right odds to call the 3-bet with any 2 cards, and I would call with any 2 cards if I'm not going to 4-bet. And guys like these who min 3-bet, I 4-bet only for value until I find out that I shouldn't. But in my experience, min 3-betters usually just don't fold the 4-bets too often. I'm going to call here. He might easily have a king X here, but a lot of these guys just bluff with anything because bluffing is fun. So with no info, I'm just definitely going to call once. This guy also has limp folding range. So from now on we are going to keep raising with strong hands and trying to find whether he only limp raised once and is actually more likely to limp fold every time he limps. Well, yeah, but we actually have not seen enough of him post flop, so we actually don't know whether he's going to be passive post flop or not. It's more likely that he will, but getting to showdown with 5-4 and seeing if he just checked down with the 2 overs with no equity, no added equity, or some showdown, like something with showdown value, it's pretty good info to have. So the first time with no data or no info, I'm just happy to go to showdown for the first time. I usually wouldn't fold here, but this guy obviously has been very tight with raises, so this is a spot I want to fold, even a hand this strong. And yeah, this guy actually has, last time he min 3-bet and now he uses 6 big blinds. So going to play tighter against the bigger sizings. Yeah, not always. And I always I definitely would hate to see it fold against like 2 overs and a flush draw or open end or whatever kind of draw. Okay, this is the second time he 3-bets in a short period of time. So let's see if he keeps doing that or not. And I'm going to raise against his limp. Now he limp calls, so he has done everything once. And I'm just happy to bet here and trying to get a fold. even though most of the hands that fold are worse than ours, I don't think he's gonna have ace-x hands too often, and I don't want to give him an opportunity to bluff, because I'm not too comfortable check calling with white that weak of a hand. To Marcus questions, what does instant min bet on the river? It usually means that he wants to get the showdown, in my opinion. Just like, yeah, this is actually pretty close whether I want to just give up, but yeah, it's close. So yeah, basically often when they just min bet instantly, they want to seem strong, so that we wouldn't raise them. This again is pretty close, whether we want to c-bet for value or not. But I think this is a strong enough hand for us to value bet with. Might not be true. It's possible that he just folds like ace-4 or whatever, king-8, in which cases I would definitely want to check call. And against a big raise, when he has been fairly passive, I just want to fold. Well, I wouldn't say quite yet that he doesn't fold to c-bets. You can obviously try limping, and it's pretty good idea, but when some of his 3-bets have been mean 3-bets, it doesn't hurt us to get 3-bet too much, and he doesn't play every single hand, and he has folded some, so yeah, you can try limping, but basically against a clearly a recreational player, I wouldn't want to balance my limping range. So I would want to min raise the very best hands of mine, and then maybe limp the worst ones. And I don't think that's gonna be a great idea often. Let's see if he wants to rematch. Looks like a sweet spot. He's thinking about it. Yeah, he does. So yeah, I basically just usually want to have a min raising strategy against guys like this. If he turns to 3-bet way more than then I'm just going to add some limps in my range. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a possibility, and good point by Carleon. Fives really close, but I think take can be raised, and this is a text, so I'm just going to check fold. If he has a clever limp calling range, it's gonna contain a lot of cards that or hands that hit this range very well. Just the middling size cards. Definitely going to bet this for value. On turn, I think we make more money by checking and calling the river. Unless 4 hits, he's gonna have like some 6-4s and like some straight draws from flop. That bet now. He's gonna have some 5s, some 3s. But again, then he's gonna have some flush draws maybe. That's a nasty river card actually. I think I'm just better off folding here. We'd need to know that he value bets like every single ace-x hands for us to call. So yeah, we actually, this is so small of a sample size that we actually don't know very well what he does against our ranges when once he has limped. He has done everything sometimes. Yeah, if he never folded, I would raise this. Or if he always folded, I think I would raise this. But once he raises, sometimes I just don't want to be raised. He's been fairly passive. I haven't seen him bet twice in any spot. So I'm just going to fold ace high and gut shot. So yeah, just yeah, I'm going to check this one as well. Yes, I would with 13 big blinds, definitely. And even all the way to 10 big blinds, I still would with the strongest hands, like king, queen and ace 10. I would have a small raise. I would prefer a small raise against the shove. That's horrible to get raised with this hand. This was the second time. I thought he only did it once, and I thought he was done with the limp raising strategy, but now we have to be like more polarized with our range raises. We want to raise some of the worst hands. Well, maybe not any worse hands because he has been calling. It's like there's still a lot of variance with his range. Like limp ranges, they vary a lot, the stats. Well, against some opponents who tend to limp call with hands like king 8 or, well, I think that's a good enough hand. Well, basically you get, against recreational players, you sometimes get or very often get calls to small raises more often than to shoves, and with very strong hands that you dominate or crush your opponent's calling range, you might want to kind of milk the opponent by with smaller raises. This again is a flop that could hit him fairly well. We have one over and backdoor flush draw, and I made a decision that this is a good. It's a good enough reason for us to bet, that we can bet twice or 3 times on a lot of structures or textures, but yeah, pretty close again, I think. He hasn't 3-bet once or raised pre-flop once in this match. On a paired board, this is like very good example of a very try board. No draws, a pair. I'm actually gonna 2-barrel because his check raise range has been wide and his fold to turn c-bet is 100%, so it's pretty likely that he's just going to check raise every single good hand he has. So if that's the case, we can just show awesome profit on turns by 2-barreling every single bluff we have, and with value hands we might not be too bet happy, and if we are gonna use smaller sizings. But usually we just, if that really is the case that he's going to check raise every single good hand and always fold a turn, we shouldn't be betting turn for value. This is again a worst middle pair. I'm going to c-bet. And against the shove I have to call. He's gonna have some draws, some worse sevens or maybe even deuces. It's not very fun, but if we c-bet, I think we just have to call here. On a flush draw board, it just needs to be done. So basically we did pretty well against the regulars and haven't won the recreational play once so far, but yeah, we still have 10 minutes, so hopefully we'll, and these are the smaller games, so maybe we'll get a revenge. Yeah, and I agree with Kaleon that hands such as small ace X's and small pocket pairs, they have poor post-flop playability, and they really don't dominate any of the opponent's hands. So yeah, and that's usually the idea behind raising with small shallow stack sizes. I don't know, maybe he has like played tens of thousands heads up sit and goes, and he has like showed a good profit by playing that way, but I would doubt it as well. This is actually not a great spot to bet the turn on, but as long as his fold to turn bet is 100, I'm just going to use it. Basically because he's capable of check calling with king on the flop and again on the turn. This is actually a spot, pretty weird spot. I'm actually going to call and going to explain later why. Okay, he had ace-5. So basically I had rolled out most of his strong hands. Like we had seen him have a wide check raising range for value, and we had seen that he's happy to, like, more likely to fold against the turn c-bet. So basically what is left in this range with this expectation, something, he's most likely going to have like queen jack, queen 10, jack 10 type of hands, and when the turn comes a spade, he might peel a turn with a let's say gut shot and a spade draw. So even though this looks pretty thin of a call, I think it definitely can be done. Well, we are just getting crushed in these limped pots. Again, I thought this would be pretty good spot to bet with a every single backdoor draw, but we were proven wrong. Well, I think it's just variance mostly. Yeah, I'm just going to call. I have a bad feeling about this for some reason. Yeah, okay. Definitely a call, but he hasn't been too aggressive with his draws, so he's just more likely to have a 5 full house or straight. So yeah. I only throw the trophies, and yeah, I don't know if I should be discussing a best on throwing strategy, because it's very like advanced stuff. But yeah, let's just say that I only throw trophies and leave it at that. End of discussion. What is your strategy? This is actually a hand I would not want to fold, but against a very tight 3-betting range, I just think I need to. If it was suited, I would have called. And yeah, a flop that doesn't hit him too well, I think. And so I'm just, he bet folded once in a spot like this when I bet, and he folded, so I just tried whether he would fold again. And this is a thin value bet against like king x, ace x hands. If he calls a flop, I think he's not going to bluff the river too often when he opts to check the turn. Most of his floats would, like if he had like 10-9 for some reason, I think it would bet the turn most often. So sometimes we are just going to value turn ourselves, but I think deuce is barely a good enough hand to bet. Again, a nasty spot where king could contain his be part of his range, so I'm just going to fold. Okay, that's actually a very good point. I haven't thought enough about that. I don't play on 888Poker too much. I have in the last 4 weeks, the coaching or the poker nights have been the only times I have played there. So maybe I'm a bit rusty with my Bistone drawing strategy. Yeah, this goes into my checking range. This is going to be the last match, by the way, because we are running out of time. So if you have any questions about drawing stuff or poker itself, this is pretty much the last time to ask them in the live session tonight. And obviously you can leave comments or feedback into the feedback and suggestions thread from the forum or in the forum. We didn't get to talk about every single question Neo had, but like readless ranges and strategies, there are like quite many ranges in this game. Yeah, I'm just going to check this, because I definitely wouldn't want to get raised again. I would want to have more equity with my check raises. So I definitely won't want to try check raising in these limped spots, but I don't want to do it too wide. Maybe it just, we haven't done it maybe not once, I think. So having equity on the first one isn't too important, I think. So it could have been done on such try text, but yeah. I shove small pocket pairs all the way to 25 big blinds, or maybe even 30 in some scenarios. And small or rack aces, it depends on the rack ace and the opponent, but not that deep, like 15 to 20 big blinds maybe. Neo's question about self-development, where is that? Am I missing it? Tips for reviewing and improving one's own game over time. Is that the one? Yeah, I just play quite a lot and label hands or mark hands for review that I find tough. I have taken bunch of private coaching from players that are better than I am. So yeah, discussing strategy against like with a friend or with a coach is definitely going to be very, very helpful, and I think it's the most effective way to study poker. And I'm wondering which raise size to use. I think this is good enough. So yeah, I think yeah, private coaching and discussing strategy with someone is going to be the best way. And if you are going to study by yourself, then just thinking about ranges and hands, trying to find like thinking about combinations in every single hand, just trying to think whether after every single action whether certain hands would fit into your opponent's range. Like, let's say someone check raises a tri-flop, they are usually gonna be polarized, so you can just roll out the very the middle in strange hands and so on. So basically just trying to hand read, and whenever you are not completely sure about some hands, just mark them and review them after a session. That's pretty much what I do, but mostly my studying is discussing hands and strategy with my coach. Yeah, but I don't know if we should be surprised about anything a guy with stats like this does. Although he has been in certain spots, he has been fairly passive, and in some spots he has been more aggressive. Yeah, actually I misclicked, or I automatically just played rematch button. I would have quit, but since I accidentally just rematches, I think we can just play this one and then quit. So yeah. This is if this was say $30 or $50 hit and go, then I definitely would just play for 40 hours or something if needed, but I'm a life nit, so I'm not going to one table $10 sit and go even against a guy I assume I have an edge against. So yeah, basically additional 10 minutes of coaching, so maybe 10 more minutes for questions. I don't feel like drawing anything. I'm gonna label him with a blue label though. This guy has actually been very passive with his river bets, so I'm just going to check. And just fold after checking twice. This is actually a turn I could could have bet myself. I actually just assumed that I'm gonna have enough showdown equity or showdown value. Again, this is actually closer, but I can't really think of a hand that would play this way, and he might even turn king highs into a bluff, so for some reason on the river. So yeah, just folding. On a such turn, which brings big number of draws, I'm just going to use slightly bigger sizing than half pots. So do you guys happen to have any like chokes or riddles or anything to entertain me or the other viewers? I'm actually wondering how many there are. It claims that 47 users are online. Most likely all of them are not railing, but against a huge check raise, I'm just going to fold my flush draw. It has very small equity against bigger flush draws or trips or even ace-x hands. So on a paired flop with a close to worst flush draw possible, I'm just going to fold. If he used a standard check raising size or close to it, I would have called, but against 5x check raise, I'm just going to fold. Mean bet, shouldn't be bluffing too often with this sizing. Yeah, I just kind of want to find out what he checked the turn with and then bet the river with, and he doesn't lead the turn with a top pair on a draw heavy board, so that's definitely something we want to make a mental note on or about. Three six suited. Depends on his sizing, but not going to 4-bets. And against, yeah, rarely folding. Yeah, I'm just going to call here. He didn't limp bet trips too, so definitely going to be more aggressive against his limp bets. And yeah, I'm just going to see bet the river. See bet's turn. When I pick up an open ender and have an only 9 high. This is actually a pretty funny spot where he didn't bet trips in the same spot, but he's gonna have ace-x hands on hands like that, so I think we have to bet the king here. Well, we don't have to, but I think we are better off. It seems like he's not gonna have ranges too often. Like if we asked him to tell us his ranges, I think he wouldn't be able to. This is pretty close, whether we want to check raise or not. I think we do. He might or might not re-raise pre-flop with the strongest ace-x hands he does some raising, but yeah, I think betting river for value is kind of thin, and he's gonna have some draws. We are just better off check calling against. Yeah, he had ace-9, which he actually didn't even value bet on the river. So that's definitely something that I would have done. And yeah, if he just limps with ace-9 and calls raise, we are kind of all playing our ace-x hands in there. I was talking about, well, which street are you talking about? This is yucky. I feel like against pot-sized bets, I mean, he has been betting a ton against, and this is actually a best card against for us against his range. It's funny that this could easily be an inducer, and his hands that play this well are going to be yeah, there's no reason to raise here, really. If he had like hand with one spade, I think he's usually just going to shove the turn, and I actually don't like it too much if he shoves the river. Yeah, this is just, I think we are going to win, but there's not too much value in raising here, I don't think. Well, is he going to have an 8 always? Queen, I don't think so. Flush, I don't think so. 8s, maybe. Yeah, close, very close. Might value turn ourselves, yeah. Like, it's just very rare when he bets the pots on the flop. He's obviously going to have queen x's. But he min bet the turn and then bet 3 big blinds the river, so it's very rarely a very strong hand. So river is pretty close, but I'm actually happy with my shove. Yeah, Neo asked whether checking or raising is like, I'm always gonna check when he's been pretty active with limp betting. I'm almost always gonna just check with my top pairs, and raising is close because we haven't seen how widely he continues against our raises, and he actually does have better hands in his range, and he might be willing to keep betting if we just call. So basically, since we have no info, it's gonna be pretty close. So yeah, let's find out how we did tonight. So yeah, reopening my holding manager, lagging a bit. So yeah, only hands from Pacific, and yeah, I'm not gonna beat this today. We basically broke even, running actually $20 above EV. So I think we just got coolered in the short stack situations. But yeah, this is pretty much all we have for tonight. Thank you for participating. And the next poke night next week will be in Finnish, and the week after that will be in English. And I have been asked to have another 6max coaching, so I think the both Finnish and English one will be about 6max cash games, and the ones after that, if you are interested, will be again about heads up. So yeah, that's it, I think. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.